Hi everyone, welcome back to the Closet Kitchen. As you can see, it's decorated for St. Patrick's Day. Nanaimo Bars. The Nanaimo Bar is a Canadian delicacy. A no-bake, 3-layer bar of scrumptiousness. Originating from the city of Nanaimo on Vancouver Island in British Columbia. The first confirmed printed recipe using the name Nanaimo Bar was printed in 1953. I grew up eating these bars. How could I not, living in British Columbia, or practically raised on them? And today, I'm going to show you how I make mine. I'll make them 2 different ways, one being St. Patrick's Day inspired, like my mom used to make me on my birthday, which happens to also be on St. Patrick's Day. There's a leprechaun on my shoulder. Let's make some Nanaimo Bars. I've started by lining my 8x12 pan with parchment paper. This is very helpful because the Nanaimo Bars can get stuck sometimes. You don't really want to risk breaking them and being frustrated and upset after all your efforts. So just line your pan with parchment paper, safely lift them out, and cut them up. Typically Nanaimo Bars are made in a smaller pan, an 8x8 for instance. I don't like using a smaller pan for Nanaimo Bars. They're a pretty sweet bar. There's 3 layers of sweet. I use a longer pan because I actually like a thinner Nanaimo Bar. They're also easier to cut and they won't break on you. I'll be using a homemade double boiler today to make all 3 layers of these Nanaimo Bars. If you have a double boiler at home, go ahead and use that. If you don't need one. You don't need anything fancy to make these either. All you do is get a pot, I put a couple inches of water in there, and then you stick a bowl in there. I'm using a glass bowl, and this is an oven and microwave safe bowl. So make sure that if you're using a glass bowl, that it is microwave and oven safe. You don't want the bowl cracking. All we're doing is putting the heat on the stove up to a, medium-low heat. We're not boiling the water, and we're just heating up the bowl and the ingredients in it because this is a no-bake bar, but there is an egg in there. So we're just going to safely cook that egg for a couple minutes with the bottom layer, which will start now. We're going to start by making a traditional styled Nanaimo Bar. I've got my homemade double boiler on the stove, and I've turned the heat on to medium heat. As you can see, I have decoratively arranged my butter and sugar. I have a 1/2 cup of butter that I have cut into cubes so that they melt a little quicker, and a 1/4 cup of plain old sugar, just plain white sugar. In this bowl, I have 5 tablespoons of unsweetened cocoa powder and a 1/4 teaspoon of espresso powder. Espresso powder is going to work lovely, enhancing the chocolate flavor. I also have 1 egg that I have whisked up, 1.5 cups of graham cracker crumbs, and 1 cup of shredded sweetened coconut. I like using shredded sweetened coconut versus the flaked coconut because I find it easier to eat. Let's start mixing the sugar and the butter. We just want the sugar to dissolve. That looks good. I like to sift the cocoa powder and the espresso powder just to help with the clumps in the cocoa powder. So let's add that. Clumps, mash it in. Just mash it in. Beautiful. Mix it up. That looks good. Now taking our whisked egg, we're just going to slowly add this egg mixture. No, it won't curdle. This is not hot enough to curdle the egg. Just add it slowly, whisk it in. It cooks the egg. And it thickens it. We'll just stir this for 2 to 3 minutes. Now we're ready to take this bowl off, put it on the counter, and add our other dry ingredients to this mixture. Now, simply add your dry ingredients and mix together. Traditionally, you would add chopped up almonds or walnuts. I don't add either because I find it makes the crust too dry. Add if you wish. Now to put this mixture into our prepared pan. To spread the mixture into the pan, you can use a whole assortment of different tools. You can use a spoon, you can use one of these things, you can use your bare hands. I prefer to wear gloves. Just grab it and smush it in, creating a nice, even layer. You can really feel what you're doing. That's going to make a very exceptional Nanaimo bar. Have fun with it. Really press the mixture into the corners. And I like to also make sure that I'm pressing down on all the edges so that they don't splay up the side of the pan so much and that they're tucked back down. This can go in the fridge while we make the middle layer. In my double boiler, I have a half a cup of butter that I've chopped up so it melts faster. I also have a half of a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Over here, I have 2 cups of icing sugar, 2 tablespoons of vanilla pudding powder. Traditionally, you would use a custard powder, and I find that the powdered vanilla pudding tastes better, in my opinion. Over here, we have 3 tablespoons of heavy cream, or whipping cream, which we will slowly add as we mix in our dry ingredients. You can actually take this off of the double boiler now and finish mixing it on the counter. I just like to mix it up while the butter melts. I find it easier to mix all the ingredients together. And continue mixing until all the ingredients are well combined. Also allowing the mixture to cool slightly before we add it to our chilled bottom layer. Ready to be added to the bottom layer of our Nanaimo bars. I just use a spoon to dump the middle layer in. You can use whatever tool you feel comfortable using. This coats over very nicely. It's very easy to work with. It's ready to go back into the fridge to chill while we make the third layer, the chocolate layer, of our Nanaimo bars. We're back at our double boiler. We're doing the chocolate layer. Here I have 8 ounces, or 225 grams, of semi-sweet baker's chocolate, as well as 4 tablespoons of butter. Over here, I have 1/8 of a teaspoon of vanilla extract. We don't want the chocolate mixture to boil because it will become quite grainy and really not very usable. So I have the stove on between minimum and medium heat. Mix all the ingredients together until the chocolate has melted. It's a good idea to allow the chocolate to cool slightly, just so it doesn't melt the middle layer. Just pour it right onto the middle layer. Give it a few good shakes. It's ready to go back into the fridge and chill. I've started to make the St. Patrick's Day inspired Nanaimo bars. I've already made the bottom layer. It's in the fridge chilling. It's completely the same as the traditional Nanaimo bars. There's a couple ingredients here that are a little different. Got the half a cup of butter, which is melting, the 2 tablespoons of vanilla pudding powder, 2 cups of icing sugar, 3 tablespoons of heavy cream or whipping cream. This is what's different. Two things here. I have a half of a teaspoon of pure peppermint and mint extract. As well, I have a teaspoon of whiskey. I'm using Canadian whiskey because this is a Canadian dessert. I'm Canadian, or omit it altogether. It's completely optional. Back onto the counter and finish mixing it there. I'm just finishing up mixing this together before I add the last element, which is the color. It has to be green for St. Patrick's Day. 4 drops of green food coloring. I don't really like to use food coloring, but it's a festive occasion. It's my birthday. It's okay. Look at that. It's just a light green. It's just a touch of St. Patrick's Day. It's ready to be added to the chilled bottom layer, which is in the fridge. They're ready to go chill in the fridge. Let these chill for at least 3 hours. My take on a classic Canadian dessert, the Nanaimo Bar. I hope you can give these a try and enjoy. Happy St. Patrick's Day. See you again next time.